This is all about couture. John Galliano for Christian Dior Haute Couture in the late 90s. This is my inspiration for this drawing. So I'm not drawing anything from the actual show in particular, but I'm inspired by all of it. I think it's 1999, maybe 2000, maybe 98. I know it's in the late 90s, and I remember seeing it in the papers, and it was so exciting. And I just recently saw it in the book, the catwalk books that you can get of all these different fashion houses. And I love this era of Christian Dior with John Galliano at the helm. It was just excess. Everything was excess, and Stephen Jones doing the millinery, fantastic. And so this is where you remember you know those scenes of the women with the big hats, or some of them had the centre parted hair, and then just necklaces all the way up to their chin, just covered in jewellery, and then all this flou tailoring, so feminine tailoring around them. So lovely suits, but with this soft finish to them, that they've been blown together like leaves in the autumn. Absolutely fantastic. So I'm scraping in just my idea. I want the big hat. I want a flou. I want that tailored suit with the shoulder pads and everything, and a cinch waist. And I'm just trying out the shapes. You see there I coloured in the hat with a big scrape of the 6B pencil, just to work out how big it is, just the volume. So exciting to draw like this. This is so sketchy, and I actually love this sketch. Um, I kept that on a separate layer, and I'm going to export that itself as well, because it's so beautiful. There's something about the sketch. I think the hatching of the shading I quite like. Um, it was such a fabulous time. There was so much money being pumped into it. There's so much money now, but this was just unbelievable. And every season something new. This is in my formative years of learning about fashion, and every season there was just this avalanche of the most beautiful things you could ever think about, with that 40s and 50s tailoring mixed with the super femininity that Galliano brought together at Christian Dior, the bar suit with the kimono, and then with the 19th century and 18th century lace and chiffon. It was so much fun. So this influences everything I do, even to this day. Every single thing I do, I think back to this era, um, of Christian Dior or couture. And you would see it in the newspaper. I was like 15, 14 and 15, and you'd see it in the newspapers, and then maybe in the monthly magazines, and then that was it. That was it. I couldn't go onto Google and find all the images again. Yeah, so it all just stayed in my head. So this, a lot of it sort of gets twisted in whispers in my head a bit, and I like to bring it all out and just draw. So I had absolutely no plan. I've drawn this thing. She's in the composition of thirds. So she's down in that third with her head at the third points meeting, and with a big hat and shoulder pads. I know how to do this, so I just got the paper and just started scratching in. And it's just about getting all your shapes right, making sure the proportions are all correct, and you're happy, and then you carry on to another sketch on top of your old sketch, and then you come in with the line. So much fun to do. So this is still the second line, trying to work out just where the detail's going to go. First one is the shapes, this one's the detail. Trying to work out what detail, how I want the earrings, and how the necklaces should fall. It was so much fun to draw, and didn't take me that long, because it's all up in my head anyway. It's all there. I haven't designed anything. I'm just drawing all different things from memories. I suppose that's what we all do when we illustrate. We're just drawing from our memory. Um, but it was fun to draw, and really fast. I love that hat though. I think I've also been influenced because I think Pamela Anderson kept turning up in my reels, and when you think, when I think of Pamela Anderson, I think of her giant hats. I know you didn't think I was going to say hats, but her hats in the 90s, she wore these enormous like fur hats and everything when she was going to things. So LA, so mid 90s sort of LA, rock glam though. Like it wasn't glamorous. It was almost punky. And so I love the idea of this giant hat with the crunchy taffeta. You've just wrenched that around the hat, and that's the ribbon around instead of the ribbon around the hat. You haven't. It's not finessed. It's just wrenched around there, and then out you go, and you throw on every single piece of jewellery you own. You wrap it around your neck, even if it doesn't fit. You just tie it with a string, and you throw it on. It's going over your shoulders and falling under your arm. It's all good, and then you march out the door. And she's got these earrings that are like pigtails with birds at the top. So it's all just madness, and that's what it was. That's what those shows meant to me. They were just all the most maddening things you could possibly think of. All the things that you would never ever see in real life, but you could only dream of. They all happened on these catwalks at this time. It was so exciting, and I'm sure a lot of people have it right now with whomever they love at the moment on the catwalk. You might be watching Demna Versace like at Balenciaga, and it will be blowing your mind. And it's so exciting to think that, say, in 20 years or 30 years, you can be drawing your ideas of what that was at this time. Then it stays with you. It just percolates, and it gets grander, and then you put your own little spin on it when you draw it. But isn't it fantastic, this perspective, this composition? You have the head there at the top third meeting the right hand side third at the very top. I went, just to myself, I call this the thumb and four fingers. So you could put a thumb down the side of her head to the side of the page at the right, and four fingers on the other side. That's just something that I sort of learned. Like I was looking at woodblock prints and everything when I'm learning to draw, and George Barbier and Rene Gruert and people like that, and you notice there's this little system. It turns out it's the rule of thirds, which I learned much later, but I always used to call it the thumb and four fingers because it looks like you've sort of slid the head in between your forefinger and your thumb, and then there's all the free space on the other side, and that was the perspective. It turns out there's actually a scientific method to find that. It's not just that. But I love this perspective, and you just have her down to her waist, so it's all about the head and the details of the garment at that point, the most important point of the garment, I suppose. And you've got the jewellery, all the most expensive stuff is here, isn't it? It's more expensive than the shoes or the bag or anything like that. You've got your diamonds and your gold and your silver all up here around your neck, close to your heart. I've been looking at some of my older illustrations as well from, say, 10 years ago, and I loved the thinner lines that I was using then. I used to draw on paper, obviously, and I'd use a 6B pencil. No, I wouldn't. I'd use a 2B pencil and draw all my lines, and then you'd draw over them with a Copic marker, so a fine liner pen, and then you'd rub out all those pencil lines, and then you'd come back in and do your colour, and then you go over one more time with a Copic marker. So it was layer after layer, but you had to rub things out, and it's what I still do now. It's still the same method, I suppose. I haven't moved on. But it's fun to look back at it, and I used to try and find the finest markers possible, the finest fine liners, and Copic, a Japanese brand, I think they are. They made them, and they were like scraping just the edge of your fingernail against the paper, and I needed just the finest thing, because if you're trying to do the top of someone's lip on an A5 piece of paper, you need the smallest pen you possibly have. And so I found them, and I had all the nibs and the replacement ink and everything like that. And I was looking back at that, and I don't know, I felt nostalgic. This is a very nostalgic picture, isn't it? And I was just excited to try that again, try just scraping in as little line as possible. And I still find it hard because I love the drama that a thicker, like the variant line gives you. It's interesting to try and go back to it, but I do each time, and it looks fine. And then this is the colouring technique that I'm teaching myself from YouTube. I watch everyone on YouTube, Coolleen, people like that, and I'm trying to learn how people who draw anime and manhwa and the East Asian style of illustration of comics and cartoons and the movies that they do, their anime and things, and the way they shade, it just mesmerizes me. Every time I watch it, I'm just in awe watching how they deal with depicting shade and depicting colours. And it's so much fun to be trying to learn something completely new. Now, it's cool. You don't shade, you just put in the shades. And what they do is they draw all the shade for this entire image, or you do all the shade at once. Everything that has to be in the shade will be shaded by a colour, and I still can't get my head around that, but I keep trying. I don't film it, but I'm practicing it every day, and I'm going to do it. But once I've perfected it, then I'll show it to everyone. It's so fun. It's so cool because you're learning from people who've never drawn. You're learning from people who have drawn since day dot on a screen, and they had layers and can delete by tapping the screen and stuff. So it's so exciting to see how they do it, because this is the medium, this is what I'm using. So I'm trying to learn their way of using it the way that it should be used by the people who learned how to. I love this though. This is that late 90s and the disruption at Dior that was happening, where you had the most beautiful clothes. You see her jacket, that blazer is just so lovely. The collars are set just so, but then the sleeves start to fall down, and then as you come down, the cuffs and the hems are blown up, like there's been an explosion, and they've popped out like the rims around a tire or something in an old cartoon. And it was that's the thing. And then it's just with this giant skirt down the bottom that's just all the same material and just flying away. You can imagine the movement in this as they floated down the catwalk. And then the twisting, because it's all been blown up, like the taffeta on the hat, all that twisting of the satin, that's the lining that comes out, and it's not neat. It's being pulled and it's roping along the seam there. You can see on the center front opening of the jacket that all the little seams that would have been hand stitched by people who are going blind, hand stitching these linings to the jacket, and it's all roping and twisting and doing everything that it shouldn't. Here, this is that. Do you see this? So if I was doing it like the people that I'm trying to learn from, all of this shading that I'm doing now in bits and bobs, because that's how I draw, they do all of this at once, and it's so dynamic, and it makes the most amazing pictures. And I think this is getting closer to what I was doing to their stuff, but it's just incredible. Oh, they make such beautiful art. It really is beautiful. And of course, growing up, you saw it. Like, manga was everywhere. Sailor Moon was everywhere. Watched it every afternoon as a kid. And then to see like the purity of it, and how it extends into the real high echelons of that style of art. It's really exciting to explore. So go and explore a different kind of illustration if you're doing that. If you're from the East Asian, the manga and manhwa and all that stuff, if you're from that side, go and look at George Barbier and the illustrators of the early 20th century. Absolutely, you can't watch videos of them doing it, unfortunately, but you can see their work, and it's absolutely fascinating. Rene Gruau, one of my favourite all time, does the whole outline of the body, and then you fill it in. That's how you learn to fashion illustrate, is you learn how to do a whole shape, and then put the detail in of the body. So you can draw a whole person in one fluid line all the way around, walking, standing, in any pose you want, because it's about knowing your proportions and then coming in and putting in your details. So yeah, there you go. If any of you are watching, go and do that. That's quite cool. Or watch me. Like, I have a different style as well. I love this. And with the jewellery, just doing it all white. Everything white. And there's just one shade to it. I think it makes it more dynamic. Doesn't it? You can see here under the hat. I love that shade. How the line follows and then up onto her cheek. On her high cheek. And then having her eyes nice and bright through it. It's not natural at all, is it? This is not what happens in life. Your eyes aren't brighter than the shade. But it makes it dynamic and lovely. She looks like some kind of character, doesn't she? Like if Sailor Moon went to Paris in the late 90s and had to go in disguise on the the George Sank or something like that. She needed something up the top. It was bling light up in that area, so I repeated that bird that's on her earrings and on that last chain that goes all the way down to the bottom of the page, that little lovely canary or an eagle soaring, and it studded through her diamond brooch on her taffeta. I love this. There was literally 2 colours in each shade. So the jewellery had 2 colours, the lining had 2 colours, and so did the suit. So much fun to draw. Isn't she gorgeous? I hope you enjoyed it.